So just how much does this garage cost to build? So I've been meaning to do a video on the garage build costs for a while here. Just haven't got around to it, and I finally got all the numbers totaled up. And it's $1 million question, because when I started building my garage, or researching it before I built it, I was wondering the same thing, how much am I going to be into? Can I afford this? Prices, they fluctuate all the time, and especially nowadays, you just can never guarantee the cost. But, I had a general idea, and, from what I'd researched, it seemed to hold true, but you always spend more than you anticipate. And that's why hopefully, some of these numbers I give folks will kind of help you get an idea of, what you may be looking at if you're building a garage too. The prices that I'm going to give you are from late 21. That's kind of when I finalized the contract. I had some excavation done to prep the building site, a few things like that, lumber cost, pretty much all that is generally from 2022 though. So I know it's a little old, but from the research that I've done, lumber's come down just a little bit. This is January 2023, but for the most part, buildings have not, for whatever reason. Steel's up, other supplies, manufacture, whatever the reason, it's still fairly expensive to build a building these days. So a lot of these costs will vary greatly depending on, your project. And, in my case, my first step was to get the driveway built back to where I was going to put the building site. So I extended from my front driveway all the way back, and that was probably 300 feet. So I had to get some material to cover that. I dug it all out myself with the Kubota. I was able to make it 12 feet wide. I'd probably dug out maybe 6 inches of material, got it down to some hard packed material, and then had some crushed concrete delivered. That's what I used for a base. It wasn't super soupy where I was at, and the size of the crushed concrete I used packed pretty well, so I had no issues with that. So the first cost was just getting the driveway back, and that was roughly 52 ton of crushed concrete. And my prices delivered, it was right around $1,221. So that's the initial cost, just to get a driveway extended, because it's used throughout the whole project. So my second cost was making sure that I could even build back there. I mean, the driveway wasn't a concern. I could put that in, I could use it for other things. It wasn't a big deal. But I wanted to make sure that I could actually build on the site in the area that I was planning. So I staked everything out, got all my measurements together, and then I had to actually get the local zoning permit first. So local zoning permit costs $215. There's some little restrictions, stipulations, but overall, obviously I got it approved. Then the next step is the health department permit. The health department had to sign off in my local area, and that was $62. And that's just to make sure that you're far enough away from well and septic and different things like that it wouldn't cause any conflicts. And then for the county to sign off, obviously you had to have the health permit completed, but the county building permit, that was just to really make sure that everything was within the guidelines, setbacks, different things like that. And that was $89. So overall, the total permit costs were not that expensive. So my first big expense was just site prep. Now, I could have done that with the Kubota. I didn't feel confident enough that, I could get it level enough and bring in all the material and get it all excavated properly. Driveway is one thing, but if you're putting concrete on it later, you want to make sure that it's a really nice base and it's done properly, it's compacted properly, etc. So this was my first big expense, and that was just site prep for the building pad itself. And so I hired a local excavator. He did all the work, dug everything out. It was quite a bit of dirt, and I had to bring a bunch of fill in because I was about 8 inches. I guess it would be low on the one side, so I had to build it up some. So the first big expense here was the excavator. So he removed at least 60 yards of topsoil It was a pretty big pile, and brought in 200 ton of fill crushed concrete. So that first cost was $6,868. So pretty big expense to really have no building, nothing in the works, just having the pad set. So the next thing on the list is really just finalizing the contract with the builder. You know, we went back and forth on measurements, different things like that. And once we got that finalized, then I knew the overall cost. I built a 34 by 50, it's 14 feet ceilings. It has an 8 by 20 porch on the side. It does have 3 garage door openings, 2 12 by 12s, and 1 8 by 8, and also a man door. So just to kind of give you an idea, the finished ceiling on the porch and also the cupola was included with this, but otherwise it included all materials and labor just for the shell of the building. And this did not include garage doors. Those were a separate cost, but just the cost, like I said, for the shell, for the most part, was $32,893. So not terrible. Once you get the garage doors added on, they have a bit of a cost, but just for the shell itself, I thought it was pretty reasonable. So then, you know, as I mentioned, the door openings, that was a big cost. They are insulated doors. The contractor that built the building, he had a door company that he kind of contracts with. I'd done some estimating and calling and different things, and it just wasn't worth for me to seek out somebody else. It was a local company, a well-known company that he contracts with. So I trusted their expertise, and they did a really good job of installing. I had no issues with them. The doors are great doors. They're Haas doors, and they're built well. So the door installation and the door cost all in one was $9,159. So the next set of items here are options, and these are upgrades that aren't normally included with the building cost. So the biggest option that I had looked into and was recommended on a lot of different groups that I had joined and researched had to do with the ceiling itself of the building. And a lot of times they use that bubble wrap type, it's not even an insulation, it's just a vapor barrier and condensation barrier, whatever you want to call it. But on mine, you can see the panels up there. They're gray. So they did not use the standard bubble wrap or whatever you want to call it. They used a drip stop type material, and there's an additional upcharge to it. I'm glad that I went that route. It's worked out nice. I don't know what else to say. It's a proven material, so you can research it and make your own decision for yourself. But that upgrade was $802. So you know, it wasn't cheap, but for me, it was a peace of mind based on my research. One of the next options that I chose had to do with the outside of the roof. And that was basically to prevent ice from sliding down and hit me in the head one day. And they call those snow bars, or there's a lot of other names for them, but all they are is just some rails that go on the top of the roof. And that's just to prevent the ice from sliding straight down. It kind of melts behind those bars before it would slide all the way down. So that was an optional upgrade, but I chose to do it. And my total cost on that was $475 to put those on. They put them on the roof, and they also put them on the small porch that I have. So another option I could have chose to seek out other contractors for, but again, he contracted locally. It's actually a local Amish company that came up and installed the gutters. So that was part of his contract price, and they did an excellent job. It's got 5-inch gutters that included all downspouts, installation, and again, it's 50 on each side of the building, so that's 100 feet plus a 20 foot on the porch, so 120 feet of gutter plus the downspouts to go with them, and that total cost was $1,047. So next, before the concrete went in, I wanted to get a couple utilities brought in. So these are some pretty big costs, but it's you know, you can do some of these afterwards, but I wanted to get it all done before the concrete came in, so it turned out real nice. Everything's real nice, tucked away inside the garage, especially the electrical, the water. You don't even know it's plumbed in the garage. They did a great job, and that was a big expense, and it was just something I wasn't comfortable doing. It was still winter at the time whenever they trenched it, believe it or not. They came in and trenched it, and it was a soupy mess. The excavator got stuck, but they were able to get it done. But it was $4,200, and that was for the gas and the water. And I am so glad that I had it done now. It's peace of mind. I don't have to worry about it later. It's here when I'm ready to hook up. Water is hooked up. I have a hydrant. If you've watched any of my other previous videos, it works great, no issues. So well worth the money. The next item on the list is the 100 amp electrical service. So that comes off my main 200 amp panel. It runs across the house, so about 75 feet across the house and out the sidewall, and then trenched to the garage and feeds, conduit the entire way. It's all buried. Concrete went in afterwards. You don't even know electrical's in the garage, which is nice. It makes a real nice clean look if you can get it done before you build or before you put the concrete in. And that was my preference, and that's what I ended up doing. So 100 amp service to the garage, which included the excavation and filling back in all the materials. Just the service panel, and included the local county inspections as well. It was about 300 feet of wire from the main panel. That was $5,169. That was a big one, and I had priced it several different contractors, and that was about as cheap as I could get it with the excavation. And I wanted to make sure it was correct. Local county inspectors were kind of picky about the depth and different things like that. Even the grounds to the building now, because it's a steel building, things like that, code have changed. So next comes some prep for the concrete. And, once you start prepping for that, you're really kind of, on your way, and it starts to feel like a building, in my opinion. So my original excavator contract came back. He came back and he had to dig a little bit of dirt back off of the pad that he had prepped. And that was mainly just when they dug the poles. They had drug some of that dirt around. It was sloppy winter, and you could not move mud that easily. We'll put it that way. So he came back in with his excavator, dug it back down to the nice solid base that he had made a few months prior, and brought in all the fill material and put in the 2 drains, prepped everything. So that was 6 inches of gravel for inside the building. And that entire cost for that excavation and fill was $2,080. So the next big ticket item has to be the concrete. I wanted to get it done as soon as possible. It kind of buttons up the garage. Big chunk, obviously, when you're building a building, especially a building, a building of any size, really, but 1,700 plus square feet on just the inside. It was a bit of money. And I didn't go standard 4-inch depth. This was a 5.5-inch depth throughout the whole building. I have a trench across the building, and that's going to be for my lift later on. And so that allowed deeper concrete with rebar and et cetera in there for extra strength. So that trench depth is about 12 inches. So I got plenty of depth to put to go ahead and put the lift on later on. Peace of mind again, but I had it done, and that totaled 30 yards of concrete. It was roughly about 3 concrete trucks, I think, that came in that day. And that was just the inside of the building. So that was $9,870 for 30 yards of concrete finished. So the next step of my project was doing the exterior concrete of the building. I wanted aprons and I wanted concrete underneath the porch area. So I had to wait for it to dry up a little bit, but then I called my excavator back. He came back in and he prepped everything for the exterior of the building and then brought in all the gravel material. So that excavation cost was with a 10-foot concrete apron, and then the entire porch area from front to back of the building was $1,043. And it was approximately 6 inches of gravel for the exterior. So I called my original concrete guy back after the outside was prepped, and he came back in and he went ahead and poured the concrete on the outside. The apron on the front of the garage is 5.5 inches depth, and that's just to match the depth of the garage itself. So I won't have any problems bringing heavier trucks or, you know, even a tractor, anything like that in the garage. It's going to be solid. The porch area was 4 inches of concrete. I'm just never going to have anything that heavy out there. So I was not concerned about the depth of that. And, you know, concrete's money. So anywhere that you can save just a little bit but not compromise the project is well worth it. So it was 12 yards of concrete for the exterior. And that finished prep concrete, everything was $4,917. One of my last major costs was really just widening the driveway. I have a big camper here. You know, I wanted a spot that I could kind of pull that out, have some room to maneuver around. I have a landscape trailer, different things like that. So I wanted some room on the exterior, and I had to go the full width of the building. If you remember, you know, I did a 12-foot wide driveway in the beginning, and that was just to get the construction crews back here, you know, all the different things that had to be hauled in and out. The building itself is 42 plus, you know, feet wide if you count the porch area. Now, obviously, I didn't need the driveway to go onto the porch, but I did want to cover the whole front of the building, especially the part that you're driving in and out of in front of the garage doors, the main garage doors. So I had to dig a lot of that back out and excavate down. I did all that again with the Kubota over here. And I had a bunch more concrete, or crushed concrete, I should say, hauled in. And then I had some finishing work done too with some river rock, and that was just around the outside of the building just to keep the grass and landscaping away from it. So I had some of that material brought in too. But again, that was all done by me and the Kubota. So that entire cost was just material only. Obviously, my labor is my labor. But that was 145 tons of crushed concrete that I had brought in for the front driveway. And it was a bit of work, but it was well worth the savings, especially knowing the excavation costs and what they were for, you know, parts of the other building costs. So I had no problem doing that myself. I took my time. I dug it out where I needed to, filled it back in, and also brought in that 4 ton of river rock for the back side of the building and for the porch area. So that total cost, again, material only, $3,637. A lot of money, but I'm glad I got it done. So if you've been keeping track, it's a pretty big number. And this is just today. There's going to be more costs as I finish the interior of the building and some other additional things I want to get, lift, etc. But total to date, $83,872. So a big chunk of money to build a garage these days. A lot more than I initially anticipated. There's some additional things as I went through the project I really wanted to get done up front, and I'm glad I did. So that added to my overall budget, but in the end, I'm glad, I had it done. And, you know, the cost is what it is these days. Now, you could wait and, you know, gamble that it might go down. Gamble is it may go back up. So you just never know. I would say if you're comfortable, it's within your budget, go ahead and build. I hope this was helpful. And if you like this kind of stuff, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me kind of get an idea of what kind of videos you guys want to see in the future. But anyways, I really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks. Take care.